So, my name is Darryl E Berry Jr. I'm an author, I'm a publisher, and I'm a teacher on various subjects, including pretty much anything metaphysical, out-of-body experience, extraterrestrials, psychic powers, spiritual growth and development. And what I'll do today is basically, my purpose is to help explore the fact that extraterrestrials are visiting here, and explore the fact that it's a positive experience, and explore the possibilities and the potentials that it means for us and for the planet. So first, a little bit about myself, because, why should you listen to me? Why should I be listening to on this subject? I'll explain that. And my mouse isn't working, so I'll be walking over there periodically. So I'm actually a long-time contactee. My first extraterrestrial encounter happened about 30 years ago. And I've had encounters over the years since then, and I'll explain those in detail. When I was a kid, which is why my first book is on out-of-body experience, I started having out-of-body experiences spontaneously. My first out-of-body experience, basically, I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I started to feel sort of heavy and lethargic. And I went to go lay down. I told my mom, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to go lay down. And I went to go lay down until I felt better. Sometime during the night, I just started feeling very good. I decided I would get up and go tell my mom I was feeling better so she wouldn't be worried. And when I went to go open the door, my hand went to the doorknob. I went to go open the door again, my hand went to the doorknob again. And I looked back and I saw a lump on the bed that I somehow saw my physical body. I walked through the door, I walked through the intervening walls, a beeline straight to my mom. I tried to call out to her, but she couldn't hear. Of course, no sound was coming out of my mouth. I was basically a ghost at the time. I couldn't even hear myself. But I was able to see everything she was doing and confirm everything she was doing the next morning, even though she told me I was just dreaming. That was my first out-of-body experience. And as a kid, I saw the classic rays several times. I'm certain some of the experiences were physical and some were non-physical. I would see them standing in the living room. Now, and remember, I was about 4, 5, or 6 years old. I had not seen any movies on this. My parents was not into this stuff. I first was introduced to these experiences and these subjects by having the experience, by seeing these beings. So I would see these short, great beings with these large eyes in the living room. As I would get up and walk into the living room at night, I would go outside, and in the front of the house, I would see a craft floating above the tree. And I'm certain that the craft at that point I was non-physical. So sometimes I was physical, sometimes I was non-physical. I remember having an experience when I was a kid where I would become aware at night, and I would sit up in my bed, and there would be 3 beings standing next to my bed, just pouring information into me telepathically. And over the years, I've done research, and I found that this is experienced for other people as well. And some people identified them as being extraterrestrials that would telepathically or some kind of way pour information into them. And the information that I would get, I would be able to unravel it. It would basically come as a packet of information. I would say the energetic or telepathic equivalent of a book will be a packet of information that you could focus on and unravel, and data will start to come out of it. And years later, when I started to read, I would read things like, have you ever heard of Seth Jane Roberts, or Bashar, Darryl E. These metaphysical topics? I would start to read these books, and I would say, wow, that's what those beings transmitted to me, and that information. So a lot of the information I got directly from non-physical extraterrestrial beings. And that was my intro into the experience. Over the years, I had other sides. When I got to around 20 or so years old, I started to realize, of course, this stuff wasn't so common. And I wanted to have more contact. I wanted to have more validation. And over my research, I found that these beings are telepathic. A lot of the advanced races that are visiting here are telepathic. So what I would do is I would sit down in meditation and reach out to them, saying, show yourself to me, I want to see you. And what happened is, after about a month of doing this every day, I was driving home from work. I used to work at this shrimp processing plant at the time in New Orleans. And on the high rise in New Orleans, the highest high rise, I saw a cloud in the distance that was flashing pink, which I knew, couldn't have been lightning. Lightning was blue, which is flashing pink. And I decided that wherever that cloud is, I'm going to go to that cloud. There must be a craft. So I'm driving to this cloud, thinking I'm going to have to go to some far off place, and I was able to go exactly how I would normally go on my way home. I passed up the street where I live by about 6 blocks and parked my car, and now I'm about 3 blocks away from this flashing cloud. So the cloud is flashing pink faster, faster, and faster. And then when it stopped flashing and it was a solid pink, this beautiful craft floated out of the cloud. Now, I didn't have a camera with me, but to give you an idea of what it looked like, and we'll get to the image in a bit, but that's what it looked like. If you look at that image right there to the left, that's what it looked like. Now, I don't know if those images are actual images. Those are things I found on the internet. I don't know if somebody took a picture, used Photoshop. I can tell you, though, that I myself, with my own eyes, saw craft that looked like that on more than one occasion. When I saw that craft float out, one thing which we will get into, it can be very surreal because a lot of the advances, all of the advanced extraterrestrials that visit here, they operate at a different frequency. Like right now, we're in the brainwave state of beta, which is a very focused and pretty much a very limited frequency. It's basically a domain that we perceive because we're vibrating at a different frequency. And the reason why these beings are able to traverse space as much as they do, they operate at a finer frequency. They could actually traverse space by bypassing space. So when you run into a craft like this, it's literally operating at a different frequency. And what happens is there's a middle ground that happens, and it causes your vibrations to shift. That's why a lot of people have missing time when they have a sighting. It's not because these beings are always, some of them do. It's not because they're always trying to wipe your memory or anything like that. It's because when you encounter a craft that's advanced, you start to enter an altered state in relation to their vibration. And if you're not used to being in altered states consciously, then you can lose memory, which is what happened with me. The craft came out, and I started to get very anxious, and eventually I blacked out. I would say I saw it for about, let's say, 10 or 20 seconds. I saw it just shove out the craft, and it was coming out, and then I blacked out. When I came to again, I started going back up in the clouds. And that was the end of the experience. It went back up in the clouds started blinking again, and then it stopped blinking, and the experience was over. I drove home thinking it was only a few minutes. When I got home, an hour and a half had passed. So an hour and a half had passed in between me seeing the crowds come out and suddenly seeing the crowd go back up. It was an hour and a half of missing time. Around the same period of time that I was reaching out to have contact, I had another experience where I used to walk to the gas station regularly, about a mile or so away. And I would just walk there, buy a bag of peanuts, and walk back home, peeling the peanuts and eat them. On the way home, I saw another large cloud in the distance towards Lake Pontchartrain, glowing like a kaleidoscope. It was like this, red, green, blue, like a ball of light inside the cloud. And as I was looking at the cloud, suddenly a black unmarked helicopter was flying very low, straight towards the disturbance. I had another experience where I would drive back and forth to Georgia to visit people out there regularly. And on the way home, I saw 2 pink clouds in the distance at the horizon. It's pink. Just imagine this: the sky was overcast with clouds, except these 2 parts of the sky which is glowing pink. So I was driving down the interstate. They was ahead of me, and what happened is suddenly these 2 pink areas in the clouds just streaked overhead across my car. So you can imagine there's a pink light in the distance, and suddenly that pink area just streaks. So there's a pink line going clear across the sky that disappeared behind me across the horizon. So you can imagine how fast that must be from a zero speed to past the horizon in a matter of a second or two. It went so fast that there was a long pink streak across the sky. Another experience I had of this same type of craft, judging by the pink glow, I was driving home again from work, same time around 11 or 12 that night. I saw some pink flashes in the distance. I decided to drive to it. This time I had to pass my exit and go towards Lake Pontchartrain. There's a lake in New Orleans called Lake Pontchartrain. When I got to the lake, I saw about a dozen of these pink areas in the cloud glowing, about a dozen of them. And one of them was, on land to the side. It was this very strange area. I guess it's something like a theme park where they had little capsules or whatever. And one of the glowing clouds was right over the structure that looked like a capsule. You could see the light coming down, bouncing off of the building. It was clearly there. I'm sure anybody who was driving on the interstate would have seen that. And this was about a dozen. Sometime, I don't even know if it was before or after. Being that I'm into this field, often I would talk to people about the subject. And I started talking to this guy we were just talking about extraterrestrials and things like that. And he volunteered to me. He's an avid fisherman. And he said, I never told anybody about this before. This is one of the things I can say. If I had a nickel for every time I heard the phrase, I never told anybody this before, I would be rich right now. Because, and that's one of the things we'll get into, these experiences are common. It's just that the perspective, the paradigm on Earth makes it seem uncommon for people who are afraid to talk about it. If everybody on Earth spoke about their experiences in one day, it will be a common experience. But I digress. But suffice it to say, he's told me, he volunteered. I didn't say anything about Lake Pontchartrain. I didn't say anything about these clouds. We were just talking about ETs in general. Are ETs real? He said, I never told anybody this before, but he said, I often go fishing on Lake Pontchartrain. And I was sitting there fishing with my friend. And suddenly, this big light, this big pink light just appeared in the sky, putting the spotlight on the lake. And he said, this thing was so big, I don't see how it could possibly be floating. And he said, I was sitting there with my fishing pole, and my friend was sitting there with his fishing pole, and we was both afraid to do anything, because I thought I was the only one seeing it. And suddenly I turned to him and was like, do you see that? He was like, yeah, I see that. And they confirmed they were seeing the same thing. And of course, I had an experience where I saw a similar phenomenon over Lake Pontchartrain. I don't know if they have a base over Lake Pontchartrain or whatever the case is. But these things happen. Let me go scroll back up. So, and in order to assignment I was mentioning, so these craft are around. These beings respond to your thoughts. And I've mentioned out-of-body interactions. I mentioned the ones I had as a kid, but I've also had more purposive out-of-body interactions with them. Now, just a bit about the out-of-body experience. I say, well, the out-of-body experience, how do you know it's real? I'm a scientist. That's really what I am. I mean, I use the words metaphysics and psychic because that's really where we're at right now. But really, this is all science. We're dealing with different frequencies of the universe. So the out-of-body experience, just to give you a bit of background. As I got older and I started to research it and explore it, I basically broke it down to a science how to do it, how to enter these altered states. I've done research studies where I taught people how to do it. I did a research study last year where I got other people who can have out-of-body experiences. And we got out, met each other out-of-body and confirmed it, and so on and so forth. So several times I've gone out-of-body, and I've, for instance, seen people out-of-body and confirmed they were there, met people out-of-body, had a conversation, went back in body, confirmed the conversation. I validated the experience. I had an out-of-body experience last year where I was intending on having contact. And I was out of body, I was in a location, and there was a spherical craft floating there. And I told my friends, look, I said, if I can't, I'll get on with these crafts and I'll leave and I won't even come back. But if I do, I'll do a flyby to try to let y'all know what's going on. And, I'm sitting there standing before this spherical craft, and these bluish type beings walk out the craft, invited us onto the craft. I was there, there was other people there as well. I decided to go on the craft. I went on the craft, we lifted off, we went through the solar system, we saw a few planets in the solar system, it brought me back. The next day, my friend contacted me and said, hey, he was like, I'm surprised I'm hearing from you. I thought I wouldn't see you anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I saw a craft last night. I thought that was you, letting me know you was leaving. And I said, well, what did the craft look like? He said, it looked like a sphere. And he got it on video, on his cell phone camera. So the bad video was on his cell phone. But you can see this little sphere, it was in a distance floating. The next day after I experienced getting on a spherical craft and telling them that I would do a flyby. That's just one of the experiences. And I had several experiences of boarding craft, which other people have had as well. Experiences of getting on the craft, going through the solar system, and so on and so forth. But that's one of the experiences where I was able to get on the craft, experience getting on the craft, and someone else volunteered to me seeing a craft, matching the description of the craft I got on, and having it on video. So, that's my experience of the fact that these experiences are good. And my experience as well is that anybody can do it. Now, I'm not so good at drawing. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I've seen several different types of extraterrestrial beings. That's the classic type of gray that I used to see as a kid, about 3 or 4 feet tall, big gray eyes. I've also seen the beings with a very bulbous head, very brown type skin. But there's many different races, but that's really the only one I can draw. Y'all can get an idea what it looks like. Now, the thing about ETs is ETs have been visiting Earth. They've been visiting Earth for a while. The oldest account I found was from the 1800s, where this man who was a farmer said that he saw this disc-shaped craft out in one of his fields, and these very short beings was out picking flowers. That was in the 1800s. There's this website called UFO Evidence, where people constantly put reports, photographs. And one of the things that I like to find is paintings. Like if you find old paintings from the 1400s, 1800s, you can see them putting these disc-shaped crafts in the painting. And we'll look at some of those paintings, as well as the architecture, like a lot of the things with the Egyptians. We'll get into that in the slide. Now, a few of the common rebuttals that people have to say that ETs are not visiting Earth is the distance thing. You know, one of the things I found is that space is really an illusion. And one of the things that these beings can do to traverse space is they recognize that space is really a factor of matter. Like we know about height, we know about depth and width, we know about time. You could be at a certain point in time. But space is actually like an aspect or a factor of an object. So if you're able to measure or plot space, that point or vector of space, which has a certain frequency or a certain unit, much like how if you look at the planet, there's longitude and latitude. You know, one point on the planet has a certain longitude, a certain latitude, that's it. That's actually the way space is. So what these beings have figured out how to do is measure space, and they can actually put their craft in the field to isolate it from the environment around it. And when they impose a certain locational vector on their craft disappears and reappears at that new location, which is why I was able to see that craft blinking off and on. They could literally disappear and reappear at a different location. So space is not a factor, because otherwise it would take, the Pleiades is 400 light years away. It would take them 400 years to get here at light speed. It would take 400 years for communication to go back and forth like with a cell phone. They don't use that kind of technology. They could actually disappear from one location and reappear at a different location, whether it's from here to the other side of the planet or from here to the other galaxy, right? And that's why several times, if you do enough research, you'll see people having videotape of a craft, and suddenly it'll just disappear, it'll just blink out. They can just disappear and reappear wherever they want. And of course, they do have technology to where they can actually make make themselves maskless. If you're familiar with Stephen Greer, he's done a lot of research with this because he's got a lot of contacts in the government. They've actually back engineered this technology to the point to where they can make any object, when you put it into this field, this high electricity, high wattage field, and actually make the mass go away. Which is why you can see craft in video going at 2,000 miles an hour and they make a right angle turn. Because once you eliminate mass, there's no more inertia. So there's several different things that these beings can do to overcome what we call the limitations of space. What we do on this planet at our level of existence is we anthropomorphize and project ourselves on everybody else. In order to say that it's impossible for an ET race to come to Earth because of the limits of space, is to say that we fully understand the full extent of time and space. Obviously, we can't do that. They're constantly figuring out things every day. So what I found is just fear, but we'll get to that. Another thing is people say the sparsity of the conditions of life. We look at the planet Earth, we say the planet Earth is only so far from the sun, so it can have a certain temperature, so we can exist, and common-based life can exist. But the fact is, our type of life is not the only type of life in existence. If you research the Greys, Bashar is in contact with the race of beings called the Essassani. What they told us about the Greys is that the Greys are actually us. That on an alternate timeline, they destroy their environment to the point that they can no longer live on the surface of the planet. They went underground and had a lot of genetic degradation. They could not reproduce anymore, and they started to clone, which is why they look that way. They're really very atrophied and deformed humans. But the way their physiology is, they can live in an environment now that we can't survive in. There's people that report beings that look like insects, giant insects like mantis beings, a very common one, that live on a very, very different type of environment. They're silicone-based beings. So the fact is, we can see a star with a planet, because of course now they can just look at a telescope and see a star wobbling. The planets that rotate around the star make it wobble, and you can see something is rotating. It could be a star that's a class that we can't live around, that doesn't have the proper temperature that we can live in, but there's different types of life that can live there. So I really think it has to do really with fear, which is the reason why we don't, it's not common knowledge. Fear that we're going to be taken over by these extraterrestrial races. If you see any of these craft, you can realize that, first of all, if they wanted to take over this planet, it would be over already. One very prominent experience that has been posited by people in the military is that these craft sometimes will fly over their military base and turn off their nuclear missiles one by one. There's no need to fear a nuclear holocaust, because nuclear weapons operate at such a high intensity of energy that it actually affects different dimensions. It would affect different beings other than just us. So it simply would not allow us to destroy the whole planet in the Holocaust. And it demonstrated that by literally flying over bases and turning them off. Right? If you do any research, you'll find that this has happened several times across several countries. So, that's pretty much the strongest weapon we have. They can just fly over and turn them off at will. We'll watch a video in a moment where you can see how maneuverable they are. There's really no weapon we have that can do anything to touch them. If they wanted to take over the planet, we would be gone. The fact that we're still here and alive proves that we don't want to, that they don't want to take us over. Saying, well, I mean, it's just like the Incas and like the Native Americans eventually want to take us over. But that's really just a lower level of thinking. On this planet, we operate from what they describe as a third density perspective, would be based upon separation, distinction. They don't see it that way. They recognize all of us as one family, basically one galactic, one universal family. They're not here to take over. And I think once we get past our fear, we'll start to open up to the perspective and allow it to become, a bigger part of our society. Let's get into the religious and scientific aspect. Like, a lady was walking by earlier, and she was looking at the fire, and she asked, "Do you believe in God?" She saw it as a conflict in her religion, the idea of extraterrestrials. And again, scientists will say the distance is too far. What we have to start to do is start to base our conclusions on the evidences and on the facts. And it's not to say that anybody has to give up religious beliefs or scientific beliefs in order to accept extraterrestrial life and existence. I'm pretty sure religions will be here for thousands of years. But the fact is, we can't allow our investment in a certain ideology to determine how we explore the world, how we accept that. Right? Let's go through some references to these things. So this first painting here, that's from the 1700s, the baptism of Christ, and you can see there's a disc up in the sky. Now, even though the biblical reference isn't as exact, like Ezekiel talked about a will within the will, but he mentioned cherubs and other things around there. But the first thing I hear when I hear a will within the will is one of these crafts. Another painting, the Madonna with San Giovanni, from the 1400s. Where did they get the idea to put these things in their paintings? I'm certain that this is evidence of the fact that these beings were seeing these crafts as well. They might have called them chariots in the sky or all the different ways that they call them things. A pillar of cloud, like is mentioned in the Bible. There's another one, the Annunciation. You can clearly see a craft that looks similar to that image right there. They didn't have cameras back then. They had paintbrushes and pencils. I'm certain that they saw a craft similar to that. What do y'all think? Doesn't that seem similar to you all? And I mean, you know, you can find it so easy. Just go online and put in UFOs and paintings, UFOs and architecture. You can find several different reliefs and paintings and so on and so forth from centuries in the past, before there was Photoshop to Photoshop these things and make it look a certain way. Where there's evidence that people have seen things in the sky that resemble the things that we see right now, called UFOs or ET craft. And of course, UFOs is an enormous, unidentified flying object, but these crafts have been very much identified. Pyramids. You know, it's a bit more sketchy, but our engineers and architects have explored the pyramids and found that the stones were so large that even with our current architectural devices, we would have difficulty with them. That they were put so securely in place and so finely measured that you couldn't stick a paper between the spaces between them. I think it's very possible that the pyramids were made based upon some technology that was brought here from different societies. But I'll have to do more research on that. Now, what I want to do now is talk about some of the many sightings that we have, and I have a few videos we can watch to illustrate some of these cases. But there's several major cases that I think are important to know about. And you know, the fact that people at large don't know about a lot of these cases is testament to the fact that people are afraid, or people are stuck to their ideologies rather than looking at the facts and the evidence. So one of the things that I've found is that there's a certain race of beings that have a certain diamond or walnut-shaped craft that's been seen around the planet in many different parts of the planet. There's one in China. There was one that was taken by actually a news crew. There's one that was taken by people in their backyard. And you can actually skip ahead and watch this video. He was talking about it right now. Now, I'm not so sure if this thing was going to actually play. You can check it out and see if it does momentarily. Actually, I'll just go ahead and put the video. And by the way, you can find this video online on my YouTube page.
Center 1628 heavy. Military radar advises they are picking up an intermittent primary target behind you. In trail, I say again.
The Boeing 747 cargo jet was on a routine flight from Paris to Tokyo, cruising at 600 miles per hour at an altitude of 35,000 feet. It was headed towards Anchorage, Alaska to refuel. Suddenly, at 5:11 p.m., Captain Kenju Terauchi, a pilot with 29 years flight experience, saw three large, fast-moving, unidentified objects 2,000 feet below. The largest object was described by Captain Terauchi as resembling a shelled walnut. Captain Terauchi said that the main craft was twice the size of an American aircraft carrier.
Co-pilot said it was as solid there as if you were seeing an oncoming jet with its lights on, except it wasn't an oncoming jet.
747 was nothing compared to this big flying saucer.
After several minutes of observing the UFOs, the pilots realized that the objects were now matching their speed, 600 miles an hour, and tracking them. The captain reported that the objects began, quote, making moves that are impossible for any man-made aircraft to perform. Then, without warning, two of the smaller craft suddenly rose and shot directly in front of the pilot's window. The objects came so close to the aeroplane that Captain Terauchi recalled that the intense glow made his face feel warm.
All of a sudden they appear and they're traveling right in front of the aircraft. And they were sort of wobbling back and forth as they moved. They seemed to be only 1,000, maybe 2,000 feet in front of the aircraft and traveling at 600 and some miles an hour.
At that very moment, their radio link to Anchorage went dead, leaving the aircraft flying blind. A horrifying catastrophe was seconds away when the UFOs rose and veered left.
Deviate from some object, requesting 240. Spinner 1628 heavy. Deviations approved as necessary for traffic. It's quite a big. Make a formation.
In his official FAA report, Captain Terauchi said we had to get away from that object.
to the White House, but it's overcast and not safe today here in Washington for a helicopter delivery of the president. The one suspects that he is going to be meeting
Oh my. That is a freaking spaceship.
Let me see it. Sarah, come
That's
over
a
here.
freaking spaceship.
Sarah.
Wait, you're moving. Shut up. Timmy, shut the fuck up. It's a spaceship.
看见。哎呀，真的是个。
Oh my God. This is taken from
Oh my God.
from Avebury. My God, there's going to be a crop circle there tomorrow morning. Oh, wow. Oh, there's another one. Oh my God. Oh my God. Come here. Here's another one.
Is it Bishop's Callens?
Well, go that way.
Oh! There's another. Oh my God. That's not fireworks, mate.
No, I don't think it is either. Yeah, because look, they're staying up to, they're staying lit too long, John.
So I always thought that those crafts was interesting. I started to see type of videos like that popping up. And you notice there was a few from America, there was one from China, there was one from Australia, the same type of craft. And if you notice on the video from Australia, the guy said, it must be fireworks. Did y'all hear that? Yeah. And she was saying, no, that can't be fireworks. I think that's the fear, that you would think that could be fireworks. It's just like a scientist saying, oh, it's swamp gas. Or I'm sure some of those are just disinformation. But I'm sure that's the fear, how people try to rationalize something that's so clearly not a normal occurrence. Now, another good case is the Billy Meyer case. He's a guy out there in Switzerland who got several very close pictures of UFOs, and we can see some of his pictures as well. So those are some of the pictures that he had. And you know, he has. If you just go online and look up Billy Meyer, he has so many different photos, close-up photos, clear photos. There's one video which we were watching a second where he wanted to demonstrate that the craft was there, and he took a video camera and the craft was going back and forth over a tree, making a tree wave back and forth. And I mean, and already we've seen, including the one that we're about to show in a second, that's what 5 or 6 clear videos. People say there's never no clear pictures or clear video. It's because they're not looking. The evidence is out there for anybody who will look. And let me pull that video up and just look at that for a second. Show you the illustrator. You can look at the tree and see the tree wave wobble back and forth. Yeah, some really different images. And it got to the point to where he couldn't even walk about freely anymore. People would just be hanging around waiting for him to go out so they can see him having a meeting. But apparently he had hundreds of different contacts, and he wrote a lot of information down that they passed on to him about different topics. You should look up as well. Now, the Riley Martin case was a very interesting case. He was basically, his family was a sharecropper. And what happened is, as a kid, he decided to, he had this urge to go out and just go outside and walk into the woods. At which point he saw an ET craft and was taken up. And these beings that he called the Biagians, apparently they have this technology to where they can read your frequency. And they put him in this machine. They was able to see his dreams when he went to sleep. They was able to read and show him his other lifetimes. And they showed him and told him all the different lifetimes that they interacted with him in. They took him up in the craft and brought him to Saturn. And what he said was they brought him to this giant mothership that was based out there near the rings of Saturn. And if you remember Cassini, I don't know how many years ago now, but an image came back from the satellite Cassini with this big giant object near Saturn. We just said, what's that craft? If we go ahead and look that up. Another one is the Phoenix Light sighting, and I'll post a video about that. Have you ever heard of that, the Phoenix Lights? So a 1 to 2 mile wide craft flew across the entire state of Arizona. You know, there was this lady named Dr. Contactee. She became basically the face of that sighting because, you know, she was seen as reputable and she was a doctor and so on and so forth. And she made a documentary about it where she had the governor, and he wasn't the governor anymore, but the governor at the time of the state saw the craft and knew he was and figured it was an ET craft. But of course, they interviewed about it because the reason why that case is so important is because it was seen by thousands of people. And they interviewed a 911 operator, and basically 911 calls were following this craft like the weight of a boat in water as it flew across the state. And she noted that her boss reported to the news or whatever officially that no one called about it. It had 1 to 2 calls. When she worked there, and they had hundreds of calls just in her center. The governor went on TV because it brought so much attention that the governor actually went and talked about it. And he made a big joke about it. You can go online. He brought this person with this big alien mask on and made a joke about it. But later, when he was out of office, he said that he thought it was an ET craft and he saw it. The David A case is interesting because it's this guy. Have you ever heard of him? David A. Derry? When he was a teenager, basically he's like a genius. He's a genius in the field of mathematics and aeronautics. And he was doing advanced mathematics, and he decided to test his theories and his mathematical formula with rockets. So he would make these complex formulas about who knows what. I can't explain it myself or whatever, but some kind of way he tested his formulas with rockets. And he would actually go to sleep, and he would get formulas and ideas from his dreams, which is similar to, just that guy's name, Stephen Hawking. He met Stephen Hawking. I researched him. He also got a lot of his formulas through dreams. He started to build a rocket so advanced to test his theories that he built a rocket that was a fusion rocket that had an electromagnetic steering system. Like you look at a rocket, you know, that little funnel at the bottom. But it was so hot that it would burn or melt any metal that was near it. So he had to build an electromagnetic steering mechanism that kept the flame at bay. He said it was basically like the surface of the sun coming out the bottom of the rocket. When he shot this thing off, it went so fast that NORAD and all this stuff picked it up. They thought they was under attack. They got like a whole FBI, you know, a raid at his place within an hour because it was able to track where it came from. And he picked him up and picked this rocket up. He was 17 years old at the time. He was building rockets for the last so many years, but this was his most advanced one. When they picked him up and picked this rocket up and examined it, they told him that they had a rocket. And they said, we have a rocket that's similar to yours, but we can't. It's broken. We want you to look at it. And they actually brought him to this underground base that he later surmised was Area 51. When they brought him there, they brought him underground. And it was basically a rocket, an engine similar to the one he made, a sort of fusion-based engine, but it was huge. It was like the size of a car. But he said that when he went up to it, he said there was a gash on it, like there was some kind of sharp, because the inside of it, the circuitry was similar to his, except their circuitry was more like, you know, filaments and fibers instead of actual wires. But it looked like there was some kind of overload, and the side casing of it, there was a burst that bursted open, but they had a fail-safe in it that caused it to shut off so it didn't completely destroy itself. And he said when he went up and touched the engine, colors came off of it. It was responding to his touch. And when he climbed up on top of it, and he noticed that it was changing according to his emotions, because when he first touched it, he was in wonder and and there was a blue light that was radiating when he was touching me with his hand. And he said that at that point, because he said he was a patriot, he said he had an American flag at home, and he believed in freedom and democracy. And in his mind, the government was honest and was open. But when he saw this craft and he realized what it was, he realized that it was interacting with his thoughts. He saw how advanced it was. He said, "Hey, boys, this ain't from around here, is it?" Then he got mad. He realized it was an ET engine. And when he got angry at realizing that it was an ET engine that they was not telling the people about, when he was touching the craft, it started to grow red. The light that emanated from where his hand was touching changed according to his emotions. That's how advanced it was. And when he started to look into the craft, he couldn't see the steering mechanism that he normally finds. And he realized that it was operated by thought. He realized that the way it was set up, it was able to pick up on the thought of the pilot. They didn't have to have a steering wheel. That's why the craft that they operate are able to fly so freely and operate at such a fast pace. They don't have to turn the steering wheel. They could think where they want the craft to go, and it picks up on it. And he was able to examine this engine and see how this worked to the extent that he could. But what they wanted him to do, they wanted them to explain it to him how it worked. He refused to do it because he felt, like it wasn't right that they were hiding this technology. And what they also wanted to do, what he said was, they wanted to use his rocket to do first strike on the Russians. I think it was still Soviet Union at the time. So they was actually taking his rocket and putting a nuclear payload on it. It was about to ship it off. And that's how insane these people are that we call government. But what he said was, he went and said he had to check on it before they sent it off. And he took this certain oil that operated at a certain point inside of the rocket, and he put it where it wasn't supposed to be. He made it explode so they couldn't use it as a rocket. But we could have had a war with Russia if he wouldn't have did that. And there's several cases. The Betty Barney Hero case, Whitley Strieber, have you ever heard of them?
This is Strieber,
yeah. Whitley Strieber. Betty and Barney Hero, they're from Florida. And they started to have several sightings that looked similar to the craft the image that I showed. And they had interactions with the graves. Very, very long-term interaction. A very important one is, and also Whitley Strieber had contact with the graves. The Disclosure Project is important because Stephen Greer, he's a guy who actually found a lot of government witnesses. People in the Army, people who was able to watch radar. There's radar recordings of these craft doing impossible maneuvers. That's why a lot of people that came forward saying that they turned off the nuclear missiles at their bases. If you go online to disclosureproject.com, there's thousands and thousands of hours of testimony from, quote, reputable people who've seen these crafts, who've seen the beings. The evidence is there. Now, another thing that, gives people a bit of chill sometimes is the abduction cases. The abduction cases that is going on. If you do enough research on abductions, you can see that there's many people who are taken, there's women who are impregnated, and then the fetus is removed again. And that goes back to the graves. There's races of beings here who are trying to basically correct their genetic structure by borrowing DNA from us. And that's where that comes from. Another thing as well is the advanced channeling. I know we all heard of Darryl Bunker and Lisa Royal. But the story behind Darryl Bunker is he had an experience similar to mine. He wasn't really interested in UFOs initially, but he was going to a certain place with some of his friends, and he saw this triangular craft floating, right? And the craft started to follow them along with their car. And after he saw this craft, the first time I believe he saw it with his family, and the second time he saw it with a few friends. And it prompted him to start to research psychic powers and UFOs and things like that. And he ended up going to a class on channeling in his research about psychic powers and things. And this lady was teaching how to channel basically from the being that she was in contact with. And what happened is when he was in this class and going to these altered states, the lady told him there's a being here to speak with you. There's someone who's ready to make contact with you. And another lady who was in the class drew a picture of a being who was communicating with her. And when he showed it to Darryl Lampa, it was a being that he saw that was communicating with him. So the being had apparently contacted the channel to say there's something here, and also contacted another lady who made a drawing that represented the image that he saw from the being he was seeing. Suffice it to say, the being identified itself as the Essasani, a race of beings who are actually a product of the hybridization program that's going on with the Greys. They operate on a triangular type craft. And according to the Essasani, that craft that flew over Arizona is also hybrids, a different race of hybrids. Apparently there's about 5 different races of hybrids that have been made from this hybridization program, from people being abducted, being impregnated, the baby being suddenly they're not pregnant anymore, men being taken, and sperm samples being taken. These hybrid races, as they progress, they advance to the point that they can travel through time. And according to Darryl E and Bashar, he's actually from the future, about 300 years, coming back to help us because, in essence, we're the ancestors. Because our DNA was used to make these hybrid races, which is another reason why they're here. People talk about fear and so on and so forth, but the fact is we're related to these beings. According to the Pleiadians, the beings that were contacting Billy Meyer, as well as the beings that are contacting Lisa Otto, we all come from the same family. According to them, the human race comes from the star system called the Lyran star civilization, around the Vega star system. And just like how it happens here on the planet, on Earth, in the United States. People move on this area and people live in that area. In some areas of country, in some areas of farms, in some areas of cities. Same thing happens on the galactic scale. Right? We all came from a certain area of the galaxy. Different groups of humans migrated to different areas of the galaxy, and different areas of the galaxy evolved in different ways. We are apparently evolved in a very destructive way, a very self-destructive way. There's different races of humans that evolved in a very advanced way. They settled in the Pleiadian area of the galaxy. They call themselves the Pleiadians, but they're really humans. The Greys, again, they're humans that atrophy from a different timeline. And the hybrids are actually our descendants. That's why they're coming. So a lot of these beings are coming not because they're necessarily foreign to us. They're coming because they are us. They're either our descendants because of the hybridization program, or they're a different lineage of human. They're coming to help their own family. So what we're going to find is, as we start to open up the contact and open up to these interactions, we'll find we're really interacting with ourselves. We're interacting with a different version of ourselves. And really it's showing us what we can be. We don't have to sit here fighting amongst each other. It just absolutely makes no sense. I saw on social media somebody had a post that said the world is, $2 trillion in debt or whatever. To who? Think about that. There's nobody here but us, but humans. As far as the dominant species on the planet, why are we here dealing with money? Why are we here dealing with different countries and different so on and so forth when we can just recognize ourselves as one species, one human species, and unite, right, in peace? And the fact is that's going to happen because they wouldn't even become here if we weren't about to reach that point. Because to them, we are all one species. When they look at the planet Earth, they don't see America, at least the most advanced ones. We could go into the fact that there are some less advanced ones that made secret deals with the government. So we got a lot of secret technology and so on and so forth. But the advanced races, they see us as one species, one human race. And we have the opportunity right now to start to see ourselves that way and treat each other that way, which will allow us to have open contact at a greater frequency, at a greater degree, which allow us to advance our civilization. So, contact, which we'll get into, is not a small matter. It's not just a matter of seeing something floating in the sky, that's nice. It really has to do with our very state of being and the very nature of our society. Because we're not going to have open contact with a peaceful race of beings that we want with each other. It's kind of like that saying, like attract like. We talked about frequencies. We have to operate and vibrate at a certain frequency in order to have a certain type of interaction with them, or it just will not work. Now, we're talking around our time. We're going to do a question and answer session at the end for the last 30 minutes of that. I'm going to with that. But I was starting to get into that as far as what it really means. The implications for Earth life. And on the slide, I put Earth human life, but it has to do with more than just humanity, right? Because really, we're in a symbiosis with everything on the planet, with the animals, with the plants. We're cutting down our trees, and we breathe oxygen. The trees put out oxygen, You know, we're poisoning the waters when we drink water. So one of the reasons why, you know, people talk about, and first of all, let me back up. People talk about the government and their secrecy, and I applaud, you know, Stephen Greer with his disclosure efforts. But the fact is, it's not about the government. It's not about anybody having disclosure, because we all have the ability to make contact ourselves. Right? I just want to make sure I say that. But the reason why, the big reason why there's a big secrecy going on, you know, I've done research and found that it's been proven and found evidence that government personnel have found professors and scientists who have cooperated with them, who purposely put out disinformation and purposely put out ideas like it's impossible to invalidate the experience, even though they know it's really happening. We see it happening now with the movies. Recently, I found on social media where the government contacted certain popular actors and wanted them to put out ideas against guns for gun control. So the fact is, it's not beyond these people that we call government to find and task people who we trust to put out information to make it seem like these things are not real. And the main reason why for them is energy. Right? If you look at the way the planet works, it's based upon oil. That's why we're out here in Iraq, to take these people oil. And if you look at the devices we have, like that computer, that's made of oil. It's made of plastic. You know, this is likely plastic. This is, you know, so if we used to look at all the ways that oil is being used, it's making people multi-millions of dollars. But imagine if you have an energy source that's basically immeasurable. You're not going to go from here to the Palladium star system on diesel fuel. You can't put enough diesel fuel in the craft of any decent size to go that distance. It's because they have technology to where they can actually draw from the actual energy in space itself. Like, there's a background of energy. I got this book called X3, Healing Entities and Aliens. There's this guy in Israel who's dead now. But he had contact with these beings who actually set up a clinic in his apartment. And it was a certain species or race of rays who basically, they wanted to learn about humanity by helping humanity. And people would go to his clinic and lay down. And though they would not see anything with their physical eyes, they would be able to feel things happening. And the people who are most sensitive, they might be able to see flashes of light or see ghost images of things walking by. And they heal several things. But what they said was that the actual energy that comes from the stars, it permeates the universe. And basically it's like, just like how we have clouds floating around, there's literally a field of energy. I think we call it now the zero-point field or things like that. There's many different names for it. But you can actually make a sort of antenna that draws energy from this field, and basically it's an infinite amount of energy because stars are constantly putting out light. That's what they actually use to get here. So if they acknowledge that ET craft are here, any scientist worth his salt would ask, what are they using to get here? What energy source are they using? It will be the end of oil. So that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why it's not being sort of validated by the government in these oil interests, because they want to keep power and control over the planet. But once we start to open up to this, and you know, the fact is, according to my research, they have this technology and different forms of it. Like there was a guy who made a water engine. You know, there was a guy who made a car that ran on free energy in some kind of way. It was bought by the Ford. You heard about that? And Shell. We have to start to open up our minds and expand ourselves so we can start to be, one, aware that these things are here. We can start making open contact ourselves, and we can start to utilize this technology. It's vital. You know, we look at what's happening with Fukushima. We're experiencing the effects of that here. That radiation gets in the water and it affects the whole planet. It's really not necessary. There's technology that we can access. You know, what I do in my day job, I'm a bill collector. And every single winter, I talk to, you know, dozens of people around the country who fall behind on their bills because they simply can't afford the gas anymore. Their fuel bill goes up so high that it costs several $100s. It's really unnecessary. You know, so basically, we have a slavery system, basically, for energy and fuel that only benefits a few, and we could actually learn to get beyond that. You know, no more burning gas, no more burning coal, no more fracking for natural gas. All these things can be eliminated by the technologies that we can implement that these beings are using as a matter of course. And we spoke about this before about universality. It's inevitable and it's necessary for us to start to recognize ourselves as one. That's the only way we'll be able to have open contact with these beings. Which is why they don't give us that technology right now, because it is used to blow each other up or keep it secret for everybody else. But it's really up to us to recognize ourselves as one amongst ourselves and one with these beings. And that's really one of the things that I see as the most beneficial aspect of it. When these beings come, they don't come as whatever. They come as one race of beings, the Pleiadians, the Greys. And we can actually learn from that and change our society. We can actually look at these beings not as some separate thing, distinct and different from us, but as a way that we can pattern our own society and our own lives to make it work in a way that's beneficial to us and to the planet. One of the things I found, like if you research Lisa Roy, we can talk about her so much. She similar to Darryl E, because she has some contacts and different sightings, and she's in telepathic contact with the Pleiadians. The same thing with the SSI. We do not have a government. That's one of the reasons why I like Star Trek. They don't have any money. They sort of have a government in Star Trek. They don't have any money. They don't have any government. One of the ways that Bashar described it is they live their lives on their highest joy, on their highest excitement. Basically, the way we pattern our society is basically we make ourselves a slave. And we have to do this, and no pain, no gain, and so on and so forth. They recognize that it is simply follow their highest joy, and they allow themselves to be the purest expression of who they can be at the highest level of their being. That frequency is basically aligns with everybody else who's at the same frequency. And the way he described it is like a puzzle. You look at a puzzle, there's like a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. There's a whole bunch of different pieces with different shapes. But if each shape is its own shape, whatever that shape is, it perfectly meshes with all the other shapes to make one picture. That's how they can survive and exist without having a government. By simply acknowledging the fact that because we all exist, we all mesh because we exist. Because we are all one universal family. So there's really no need to have a separate group of people or a separate group of beings governing others. That we simply allow ourselves to be the natural person and the natural being that we can be. So all of these societies are based upon self-responsibility. And it's really necessary because all of that stuff, like for instance, right now I heard somebody talking about the elections earlier. All government really is irresponsibility. I mean, think about it. We have problems in the world, and we say, what we're going to do is let's elect one person, or let's elect a small group of people, and they're going to handle it for us. Forget the fact that the last, I don't know how many since I've been alive, lied about everything they said they was going to do. You can go online and see the videos. Obama said he's going to do this, and he didn't do it, and so on and so forth. But let's elect them this time, and they're going to do it. And we're just going to go about our lives and watch movies and American Gladiator. And we're just going to let them do it. Oh, they didn't do it this time. We're going to elect someone different next time. Down with Bush, let's elect Obama. Down with Obama, let's elect somebody else. And we don't tend to these matters. That's why the planet is the way that it is. The only way we're going to allow our society to expand is to start to become responsible for the planet ourselves, each of us. And that's how these extraterrestrial societies exist. Every single person in their society is responsible. They don't have anyone governing them. They don't have anyone that they blame or that they task to take care of their problems for them. I remember I saw this video about what was that called? The Memphis 3. These kids who were falsely charged with murdering these other kids, and they were later vindicated. But one of the things that stuck in my mind was when they believed there was some kind of occult witchcraft thing, and the lady said, "Why didn't they tell me? They should have told me then." She said it was their responsibility to inform her about her own environment. I hear this over and over and over, especially as a bill collector. Our entire psyche has to change both in order to elevate our society into a society that we can actually have a free and peaceful society, and so we could actually interact with these beings on an equal basis. As long as we see them as some kind of deity, it's not going to work. We have to start to see ourselves in a more expanded way. So that's pretty much all I had. Does anybody have any questions about ETs or craft or anything, or making contact or anything like that? Don't be shy with questions at all.
You're saying that the extraterrestrials are us.
Basically, yes.
Would there be any other, I mean, you said also there could be other life forms that are, instead of carbon-based, it could be silica-based.
Yes, but in that sense, they're still us. When I say us, I mean on two levels. The main ones that are interacting with us are us because not only are they us in the universal sense, but they're us genetically, like the Pleiadians because this is the way it works. This is the way they describe it. When a society is about to enter into the galactic community, it can be very disconcerting to be suddenly presented with a being that's so different from us. Because we can't even deal with differences amongst ourselves. Someone has darker skin than us and we want to hang them by a tree or enslave them. This is only within the last few centuries. So look what we do to people who are literally the same genetics as us, because everybody on this planet who are human can have children with each other, but we treat each other differently. So to walk into a silicon-based being that's so different from us that we probably wouldn't even recognize it was a life form if we wasn't even aware of it, we're not going to run into them initially. So the initial beings that we run into are beings that are literally us genetically, like the SSI, who are a hybrid race of us. They have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. The Pleiadians, who are actually humans, but just a different branch of humanity that evolved in a different galaxy. The beings who were in that craft that was in Arizona, they're called the Yariel, another hybridization species. So they're us in the universal sense, but they're also us genetically. But the beings who are silicon-based, insect-based, they're us as well. Because what we're going to find is, we were talking about technology and how these craft like David Adair find out they're thought responsive. The only way you'll be able to have technology that's consciousness-based is to be consciousness-based yourself. And what I've found from the out-of-body experiences, I've met humans out of body, like I said, they confirmed it. I've met extraterrestrials out of body. I've met what we would call demonic beings out of body. I've met what we would call angelic beings out of body. And every single one, that core aspect of consciousness is the same. So every being is us. We have to understand this and recognize this if we're going to advance into a galactic community, right? So the ETs, every single being is us because we're all a part of that universal being. That all that is, that universal spark, that spark is in all of us, right? So when I talk about the beings that are visiting us, I mean that on both levels. But again, even the silicon-based beings, they're still us because consciousness is the same. The consciousness is underneath, right? But again, initially, the beings that we see, they'll literally be related to us. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, actually, what we may refer to as ETs may even be here in the form like you and I.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, look, they're already here.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And sometimes they can be us.
I mean, definitely, yeah, they walk around. You know, a good example of this is there's this book out by Shirley MacLaine called Out on a Limb. And she had this guy who was into a lot of metaphysics and stuff. And actually, I need to give more backstory. There's this lady named Captain Turner, I can't remember her name exactly. She's a researcher. And she found the guy who had a lot of contact. And he met this being called Maya. You know, he went out on a retreat somewhere, and it was this female who worked at this retreat he was at, this resort he was at, this lady named Maya. And he got to know her. And then suddenly she disappeared. And he tried to find out where she was. He couldn't find her. And you know, he was out walking, you know, on the trail somewhere one day, and he saw her, this lady, very beautiful, attractive young lady. And over the several weeks and several months, he would go out and meet with her, and they would just have conversations about philosophy, about science, about other life forms, about spirituality, very in-depth conversations. And but she would never tell her about him. she would never mention who she was or talk about herself in detail. And eventually he could question her for, who are you? Tell me about yourself. And she would say things like, I live in the mountains. You know, my people, we live in the mountains, and things like that. But eventually, after a certain time, she told him that she was an extraterrestrial, that she was a Pleiadian. And, you know, he was, of course, very upset. He thought she was lying, and he asked for proof. And she told him to stand at a certain spot at a certain time on a certain day and look in a certain direction. And when he did, he saw a disc-shaped craft similar to the ones that Billy Meyer got on video that came and just flew in between the mountains and flew away. So apparently, a lot of them are living here. They have bases hidden in the mountains here. And of course, you know, they have such technology that, you know, we went and looked for them. We wouldn't find them unless they wanted us to, you know. But they are here on the planet. Some of them are walking around talking to people.
They don't necessarily have to have the show because they can be born.
No, yeah. So how you know what you're saying? From Dolores Cannon's books, she has a book out called The 3 Ways of Volunteers, and through the channeling that, not from her, but the channeling that's come through her subjects under her hypnosis technique, she has categorized several 3 different groups where basically after we dropped the nuclear bomb, people were sent here, other souls were sent to be put into a human body in waves to, help change and to put different forms of energy around to, you know, at certain times it could come up and help maybe change.
I've heard that concept before. You know, I've never heard the ETs themselves describe it that way. Like Bashar is one of the main ones who describe the transformation that we're going through. And according to Bashar, Darryl Anka is his past self. Like a future lifetime, Darryl Anka will be Bashar when incarnated as Bashar. And that's another reason why they're us as well. A lot of these beings are actually future incarnations of ourselves. But according to him, basically, and I've validated this myself through the out-of-body experience. There's multiple timelines. And the way they view us, they view us from their perspective. Like we talked about earlier about freedom and self-responsibility. They operate from a place of self-responsibility. And if you're self-responsible, then you're not responsible for anybody else in that sense. Like, you know, they don't want to be mommy, daddy, government coming to save us from their perspective. But what happens is when we make a decision within ourselves to elevate, we start to vibrate at a frequency that lets them know we would like their assistance. So from their perspective, as they describe it, they're not really coming here and seating themselves here to save us. That is happening. Like
to raise the energy of the planet, basically, is the way that I'm interpreting it from the book.
You know, I mean, I'm familiar with Ms. Cannon. I've never really read her works. I looked into her a little bit.
Really fascinating. So then she has countless points, you know, where it's not scientifically proven, but when you have been in a field for 30 years and you visit so many people, subjects that come to you and in a trance state repeat the same things, and the same things are coming from enough people that she's categorized them into different categories and then writes books about it.
But I would just make sure to caution against the idea of some kind of saviors coming here, because you know.
No, it's not a savior. It's just it's to help raise the level of the consciousness of the planet. Basically, is the purpose.
In other words, it's like this. The fact is, no one can raise anybody else's consciousness for them. The fact is, if someone wants to be negative and someone does not want to be spiritual, there's nothing anybody can possibly do to change that. And if somebody wants to be evolved and expansive, there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Oh, I agree with
And there's
that.
many different timelines to where people can have what they want. There's timelines where people can have all the tyrannies they want, and there's timelines that we can evolve to where there's a peaceful society. So, you know, I think what you're saying is happening in the empirical sense, but me myself, in my experience, I think her sort of spin on it is a bit off. I think there's a more expansive way of looking at it, you know. But you know, it's just a perspective. What other questions or comments?
I have one. Basically, what is, in your opinion, what is the best way to initiate contact?
Well, really, the main way really is to change yourself, change your frequency. Because one of the things that we'll be made aware of is the fact that contact is happening now with everyone. That's what the ET said. Contact is actually happening with everyone right now. But what happens is, as I was saying earlier, their frequency is so different that we'll black out when we have the encounter. So a lot of people just don't remember it. When I had that experience when I saw that craft that I got on, that my friend got on video, there were other people there. One of them I knew, but they would have no memory of it. So the first step is to change your frequency, is to start to be more yourself. Because they operate on the frequency of joy, of peace. So for instance, if there's something that you want to do in life, like for instance, me, I want to write books, I want to teach. I started to do it. And I feel my energy, I feel fear, I feel more open. And I feel my contact opening more simply because I'm starting to vibrate at a frequency that's more like theirs, right? If you're hateful, if you're judgmental, if you deny your creativity, then you will place a barrier within yourself to where even if you have contact, you won't remember it anyway. Your frequency will be so different. So that's really the first thing. Change your state of being. And that's one of the reasons why contact is so important, because it really represents a shift in our state of being. Contact we would not be aware of this stuff if our state was not changing. But now it's up to us to take conscious control of it. As you start to change yourself, the second thing you want to do is simply place your intention. If you sit in meditation every day, because again, these beings a lot of them are here to make contact. There's beings here, literally here, like for instance, Bashar calls himself a contact specialist. That's his job, quote, in this society. Again, we don't have governments and jobs. But what he loves to do is to go out and make first contact with civilizations. So he's here and wanted to make contact. I had contact with SSI a few months ago. You know, I went into an altered state, and I had an out-of-body experience where these two SSI did some kind of vibrational adjustment in my energy just by intending to have contact with them. So if you sit in meditation and you send out your thoughts saying, I want to see you, show yourself to me, they will show you. They will show themselves to you. But again, if you don't start to change your frequency overall, you just won't remember it. But every single time I've sat in meditation or had an out-of-body experience and intended to have contact, I have had contact. Every single time. And when I say every single time, I mean, it may not happen the very same day. But if I start to have that intention within the next week, within the next month, I will have contact. Either I will see a craft, or I will have a dream where I have contact, or I have an out-of-body experience where I have contact, and so on and so forth. So those two things basically change your vibration, change your frequency, who you are. You know, there's an article online, you can find it on my website, called Fort Density Relationships. And it gives several of these concepts. For instance, honesty, allowance, not wanting to control others. It's just that these things change your frequency. And we can see this within ourselves. When we're judgmental with somebody or hateful of somebody, don't we feel it within ourselves? We feel our energy and we feel that hatred. You know, when we repress our creativity, we don't feel good. We don't feel free and open. When I started to do my writing and my publishing, it just feels good. I enjoy doing it. And that vibration is the vibration they vibrate at. So the closer we can vibrate in that frequency, the more likely we will be, the closer we will be to that meeting ground. And then the contact will be allowed to happen. So those two things, change yourself and just simply place your intent.
So basically it's a sort of signal, I guess.
You become the signal. That's right. You become the signal. And in a sense, it's more that we basically, again, raise ourselves up to meet the contact that's already happened. According to them, everyone has had contact. According to them, most of the people on this planet were a part of the hybridization program. Meaning, most of the people on this planet have been taken and had genetic samples taken, been taken and had hybrid children made. Most everybody has done this. They had some kind of contact. We just don't remember it. You know, so it's really a part of changing ourselves and facing the intent. And again, I mean, I can say a lot more about it, like, you know, there's fear barriers and things like that we can get into, and altered states, and there's more to it. But those are the basic ideas. I'm going to have a workshop coming up, and I can show the date right now too, when we can talk about it in detail. If anybody wanted to join, and like for an hour and a half, we can go into detail about everything. But again, just that basic stuff will work. But there's more things you can add to it that'll make it more efficient. Addressing your fears. You know, Debbie went through one of my overviews, learning altered states. because they exist, like the Pleiadians, they exist at the state that we call theta. When you go into a very deep meditation and you start to see visual imagery and things like that, that's a theta state. And to them, that's their conscious state. Like we're conscious in theta. That's why they're so telepathic. You know, account after account, people have contacts. And they say that they heard voices in their head. They were speaking with each other without their lips moving. That's the theta state where psychic powers happen. So for instance, if you're not versed with altered states and you lose your awareness, like when you go to sleep, maybe you just close your eyes and you black out. That means you don't have any altered state capability. So if you have contact and you shift into an altered state, you won't remember it. So, you know, there's other things that can be added to it. What else? Any questions, comments? We have about 10 more minutes, or 5 more minutes officially.
Is there any kind of meditation or anything you do to kind of keep from not having any of these type of things happen to you?
Well, I mean, you just have to place your intent, you know. We have to start to recognize that we're always in control. That's the fact. Always we're in control. So if you're having experiences, that means that some level of your being, you want to have those experiences. So if you want to take control of having experiences or not, the first thing you're going to have to do is acknowledge that. You know, you have to acknowledge that whatever you experience, whatever comes into your field of experience, at some level you chose it. 100% responsibility. Once you acknowledge that, then you start to be at a place where you can start to make changes. What experiences are you having that you don't want to have?
I don't like talking about it too much, but I don't know. You know, it's like you say, you just think of it, you'll see a UFO flying when you don't want to. Either that or they're all over the place. I don't know.
I'll say this first acknowledge that you're seeing it because you want to.
Yeah.
And once you acknowledge that, I mean, if you see yourself as a victim or as receiving it that you don't want to, basically you dissociate yourself from your ability to choose the experience or not. So first acknowledge that you're choosing it. And once you really situate yourself in that acknowledgement, just let them know I don't want to have the experience anymore. When I was a kid and those beings were visiting me and pouring information into my mind, it would happen on a regular basis. And it would get to the point that like it would happen throughout the night, sometimes throughout the whole night. And I would wake up more tired than I went to sleep because I wasn't getting the rest. I would just get information. And one night I told him, I said, just stop because I need to get some sleep, and it just stopped, you know. And then after about a few weeks or so, when I started to, you know, get some sleep and regenerate, and I opened up my intention to have it again, and it just happened at a slower pace. It became once a week instead of every day. So, you know, so that's all you have to do. You know, I've had experiences where I wanted it to stop, and I just placed my attention. If you experience yourself wanting it to stop, but it's not stopping, that means you have not yet gotten in touch with the part of yourself that wants it to happen. So that's really the first thing. Get in touch with the part of yourself that wants it to happen, and then you will be able to start to consciously make a choice for it not to happen. 100% responsibility. Anything else?
How long do you meditate?
To have? You mean in order to have contact? It depends. I would say in my most active times, between 10 and 30 minutes in the sitting. You know, but I've had success meditating just 1 minute, just intending. So, you know, it's really up to you. You know, when I do practices like that, I try to allow myself to feel within myself and feel what's right, because a lot of it has to do with synchronicity. You know, like for instance, when I was coming home that day and I saw that crowd, so I happened to be driving on the interstate and I saw those crowds, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time because I had that intention. So if you have the impulse to have contact, just sit and meditate for as long as it feels right, and it will be different amounts of time for you. You know, so there's no you know, when you say requirement, like I have to do this or I'm not going to have contact. You know, it's actually pretty open to personalization. Just do whatever feels right for you, you know, and it'll work. So that frequency is actually very important. Following your high and joy. You know, when I'm in a state of joy and excitement about it, contact happens a lot more often. Just plain, like the society, they have a symbol, like the symbol for their society, like we have our flags and everything. The symbol for their society is a black background with a black equilateral triangle in front, and you can tell there's a black triangle in front of it because the background there's a blue light coming from behind the triangle. So you imagine a black background, a black triangle with blue light around the border of the triangle. And about 2 months ago, when I had that experience, I sat down in meditation. I went into a lightly altered state, and I just started visualizing that symbol. And it wasn't any more than a few minutes. I popped out of body. I was floating in this area, and these two SSI, they came up, and they started making some vibrational adjustments. I imagined it helped me have contact more. It didn't take but a minute or two. But again, when I had those experiences years ago, I would sit 30 minutes every single day like clockwork. So but that's what it felt. That's what felt right to me at the time. It felt right to sit there for 30 minutes. So just feel within and know that you really can't fail. If your intention is to do it, it'll happen. You don't have to worry about it. No, she got a few more minutes, 5 more minutes. Awesome, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed the talk. This was my first ET talk, so hopefully it was information. And there's some other stuff y'all can check out as well. Like I'll do a talk online on phone about how to make contact. And again, that right there will work. But the talk will go into a lot more detail about altered states, about addressing our fear, and so on and so forth. About different contact protocols you can do. Like you can actually use your mind to clairvoyantly show them exactly where you're at. There's many things you can do to accelerate the experience. And like I said, I've been having contact for decades, so I'll teach that. And in April on the 30th, there'll be an out-of-body experience question and answer. And it's mostly like a how-to. Like this talk was basically like an introduction, but those will be just how-to. The same thing with the out-of-body experience. So it's mostly geared towards people who already read travel before, or who already have some knowledge of it and just want to get the nuts and bolts about exactly how to do it. But I've had several out-of-body experience contact. One of my major ones was this gray, this 7 to 8 foot tall gray I met out of body. And he told me he was a father of mine in another lifetime, actually. And he taught me a lot of stuff. I had several contacts with him. But if you want to know how to, that those will be there. And I'll have other talks and stuff in the future as well. Awesome, guys. Thank y'all for coming. Hope y'all enjoy.